Oh, goodness. Wow. I'm breathless. How about you?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. Perfect timing. I just finished doing an email to about 50 people individually, individually addressed. You know how long that takes.
Yeah, that takes a
Just,
while.
yeah, just copying and pasting even.
Right. Um, so tonight I want to talk a little bit about um, what's going to happen tomorrow. There, Deborah wants to get in as a panelist. Just a moment, Deborah. We are getting you in. Just a sec. We gotta let other attendees in. Hi, Joss. So just a minute. Promote the panelist. Promote the panelist. Okay. Um, okay. Where are they? Promote the panelist. Okay, there's Deborah. Hopefully. Hey, Joss. Hooray, we got you in. Yeah. So I'd like everyone to meet my dear old friend, Joss Sangalang, who is a psychiatrist. She lives in Hawaii, and this is her first visit to the Carl Jung Depth Psychology Reading Group. So I'm delighted to have you here tonight, Joss. And if I say anything that's not right from a psychiatrist's point of view, please beat me over the head and shoulders severely. Wait a minute, I can't hear you, so I have to unmute you. Can you say something, Josh, so I know I can at least hear you?
Aloha, Skip.
Oh, aloha, Josh. Great.
Yeah,
Okay, we're
I
cooked.
can see you, but you can't see me, correct?
Uh, yeah, that's the current situation. You can either show us or not show us as you wish. And
Okay. I don't know how to do this. This is my first time doing this Zoom anyway, and I just downloaded the app. So this is all new. So thank you for inviting me to this forum here. And it's a learning experience. And since I'm new, I'm just going to be a little butterfly on the wall and, hear
yep.
what everybody's going to be talking about and just enjoying the process.
Okay. Well, usually we're going into a heavy duty young teaching moment, but right now, because of the coronavirus, I don't know if you heard, Joss, but here in Maryland, um, Governor Hogan has made it official that as of 6 minutes ago, we are bound to home, and um, we can be fined $5,000 or a year in prison for failing to stay at home. And so they are definitely tightening this up. And Mayor Bowser over in D.C. Um, has done the same thing. So, and good evening, Art and Nick. I don't want to ignore you. I just want to just we're uh, we're just getting organized at the moment. Um, but anyway, I think Nick has, and Art will stay on the chat, I think, but Nick, if you want to join us in the webinar, by all means do. Um, we are, I mean, the whole world is in the middle of a incredible psychic shock, a traumatic shock. And, I liken it to the the Hiroshima attack, when people woke up one morning and everything was gone. And my friend Tim Holmes and I, who are organizing this global coronavirus check-in starting tomorrow, Tim has created a piece of art that sort of expresses how we feel, or it expresses how I feel. And so I want to talk about that for a bit. And then we can talk about other things. But tomorrow, we are, I'm going to just give you this image for a moment. Okay, so this image that Tim created for our activity is called interaction. And I presume you can see that. And the way I'm thinking about this is how people in Hiroshima must have felt at 8:30 in the morning on August the 6th, 1945. And I think a lot of us feel that way right now, in the sense that our world is completely destroyed. In my case, because I'm going to have to quarantine myself until there's a vaccine, and that's going to take 1.5 years. It means that I can't go see my grandchildren, and I can't go to the movies and go out and have an ice cream cone, things that I like to do. And so this, to me, and for Tim, really expresses something about the emotion of this moment in time for all human beings. And so tomorrow, we're going to launch this global coronavirus check-in. And Tim and I have been involved in a few of these in the last 1.5 weeks, some of them with mental health professionals. And let's see, okay, Tim says he's on YouTube. Can't get on Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. I don't know why. Okay, let me just check. I'm going to be not paying attention for a moment, but Jerome, why don't you talk about how people are reacting in your neck of the woods, and I'm going to meanwhile see if I can get Tim into this group.
Okay, I'll do that. North Carolina just declared a 30-day sequestering, and only essential businesses can go. And so it looks like we're in for a month at least. And I did have to go to the grocery store, and because I'd been sequestered for almost 3 weeks anyway, because I just did that when they first started. And now I ran out of stuff and getting stuff for the neighbors, but I was really scared going into the grocery store. So I wore a mask and take careful. I have a lot of allergies, and so have to be very careful. And I was just shocked at the number of people that were bringing their kids in because they were out from school. It was just, there was no, it was just like nothing had happened. And I was just absolutely disgusted, even though I was terrified going into the store. But I did wear a mask, just a surgical mask. And I figured out very quickly that people keep their social distance when you walk around the store in a mask on. So I didn't have any problem with the social distancing point. But, you know, and it was just, if we don't change our attitude, I mean, it's just, I was just disgusted with it, really. Did you get Tim on?
Well, I have added him under his other email address. So, Tim, I have added you under musegaze@yahoo.com as your email address. I'm hoping it appears to have taken on Zoom. I had you already under the other email
He's
address.
in the chat. He's appearing in the chat. So you have to
oh, here he is now.
upgrade
Here
him.
he is. He's come. Yeah. Okay, you're coming on, Tim. There you go. There he is. Hey, Tim.
There he is. A picture of Tim.
Wow.
Picture of Tim.
I feel like I went through an initiation to get in this place.
Yeah, I think what happened somehow is that I had only Tim Holmes Studio listed and not your MuseGaze email listed. And somehow Zoom is looking for your MuseGaze email. So I just added that also to the link. And so we should be getting you just fine from now on, I hope.
Great.
I'm just going to add you to the, Tim, while I'm fiddling around with some technology, would you mind talking about what we're going to be doing on the global coronavirus check-in?
Well, Skip and I were in this meeting this weekend that I really appreciated, that I've called kind of a council of elders to deal with my own experience of having this numinous experience and not being able to talk about it in any kind of format that I could come up with that our culture provides. And it was so meaningful to me, and I think to other people, that we thought about, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could provide this kind of a situation, a sort of circle of concerned people that could address issues that come up for individuals, not necessarily in a like a professional counseling venue, but just a circle of elders, a bunch of people who are concerned about each other, who have a certain amount of education and exposure to the world, that could just be supportive of whatever it is that comes up for people. The guy that led our group shared with me that he's had various numinous experiences over the years that he didn't even feel he could share with his professional colleagues in psychotherapy, and didn't even really feel comfortable sharing with his wife. And it seems to me that this is not an uncommon experience, that in this culture that puts so much emphasis on economy and success and building up your social reputation, there really is no receptacle for any kind of failure or doubt or confusion. And the best that the culture itself has to offer is, just go get drunk and come back on Monday morning and be done with it. And even the church really doesn't have, beside pastoral counseling, it doesn't really provide a kind of receptacle for that sort of thing. I know that in native cultures, at least traditionally, they did provide a council of elders that would come to an individual with open arms and say, you know, whatever it is you're experiencing, it's a gift to the community, and we want to help you digest it. So that's my understanding of what we're trying to put together. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and you know, I'm hopeful too that we can collect some stories from around the world. I was communicating a few hours ago during my reading time. I'm doing a reading every day at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. But during that reading time, I sometimes take chats, and I ran into an Italian woman, and she's expressed interest in participating in our conference, our support conference tomorrow. And I'm just going to give everyone on the YouTube channel the link here as soon as I can find it. Anyway, I'm working on it.
Well, I can address something that Tim said.
Right, please.
He talked about people that have these experiences, and the guy was afraid to talk to anyone about it.
Yeah, including his own colleagues who are mental health professionals.
Well, and that's because in that particular realm of psychology, they do not accept those experiences that we all of us have had, I'm sure.
What?
At least I think we did.
You're talking about Jungian psychologists won't talk to Jungian psychologists?
No, I'm talking about the other type of psychologists, the Freudian.
Oh, okay, all right.
And the academics, and it's their culture is such that you can be diagnosed with a problem if you go in claiming that happens.
Yeah.
And that's he was right not to go there, but we do need to discuss, because we've discussed this before, that these experiences have happened throughout time, throughout centuries. They've been described by a number of people. And Nancy, I don't know where Nancy is, but she's described her particular order that she deals with is the experiential type. That's what they're about. They're about experience and the, that numinous cosmic reality or experience. So we should really be open to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add that this guy we're talking about, Ed, the psychotherapist, he worried about this way back in the 60s when he was in college and going through training. There wasn't any training in Jungian thought. There was just the behaviorists, and that's been endemic throughout the entire profession. And so all across the nation, and I'm sure elsewhere, there really is this refusal to deal with numinous experience. It always comes down to, how can we medicate, or how can we diagnose some kind of a difficulty, rather than how do we take this experience as valuable, something that all of us can use.
Yeah, well, I came up through the transpersonal psychology, which you've heard of Stanislav Grof, in terms of the numinous experience. And his whole claim is those experiences are an opportunity for you to heal yourself, because you are the one that heals yourself. You just need to open yourself up to it. And he's had years and years, 50 years of experience in observing people healing just because they're going down and exploring, that particular realm. So the problem with the cognitive psychologists and the academics is they have so many different branches. They're scattered around. They got different ideas, and they don't really know what's going. If you go for a diagnosis, you might get one from somebody else, and they could all be different because it's just their perception. So, but anyway, I just.
Okay, so finally I did manage to get onto the chat, the link for registration for our global coronavirus check-in for tomorrow. So if you are, and I'm not talking about we webinar panelists because I know where you are. Okay, but if you are just a civilian anywhere in the world and you want to tell us the story of what you're facing in your community and how you're dealing with the coronavirus. I know lots of folks who are, having trouble dealing with the fact that they have their kids at home 7x24x365 right now. And I know a lot of men that are suffering from not having sports and other things that they normally use as diversions on television. We'd love to have the benefit of your wisdom tomorrow at 11, and we're going to be doing this 3 days a week until probably as long as at least I live, but I don't know. I don't know if Tim is committing that long, but anyway, I'm prepared to do it, and it's a free session. But we ask you just to register once, and then you can come on as many times as you want and participate with us. And we will be recording it. We'd like to keep track of the experiences people are having all around the world. As I said earlier today, I met an Italian woman during my reading session who says she will be on with us. So it will be quite interesting to hear her personal experiences in Italy. Italy is now the second highest country in the world with coronavirus, behind the United States and ahead of Spain. China is currently number 4, and by tomorrow, it appears the US will have twice as many cases as China has reported. And so this is destined to be the most traumatic global experience for our species ever. That's what I guess. And
yeah, it's a collective crisis, and we're in danger of losing it and going down into the dark side and doing things we shouldn't do. And I think that what you're doing here is we're able to express, and it's okay to express ourselves and not feel any fear of a retribution or anything. It's
right.
Because you can undergo a loss of hope, faith, or love in this whole system, and we need to express it and get it out of our system, and maybe we can help each other.
Right. And we're doing this Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at the moment. We'll increase it if we need to. Now, the time was selected. This doesn't help Joss any. And by the way, those of you who came in late, Joss is a psychiatrist friend of mine from Honolulu, and she used to live here about 2 miles from me, but now she lives in Honolulu, and she's a psychiatrist. She's practiced for about 25, 30 years, I guess. And so this is her first time on, but unfortunately the 11 o'clock time frame is designed to support people around the world. So it supports people like those in Europe. It's a little hard for the Californians where it's going to be 8 a.m., but it gets to Europe, it gets to the Middle East, it gets to most of the Far East because they often work late. So It'll be midnight or 1 a.m. in Far Eastern places. It's a little rough for our friend Nicole, who is in Australia. And so for that reason, we are going to also take some of our time on this weekly Monday night session to also offer an opportunity for those of you who are on here around the world to also participate. And so that includes Joss, because for you, it's just nice and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right, Joss? Something like that. Right. So 8 p.m. Monday is a good time for Joss to participate, but 11 o'clock is absolutely a terrible time because it's 5 a.m. in Honolulu, and 5 a.m. is a little rough for any of us. But let's just talk about, for the moment, let's just talk, and here's Nicholas has come on, and I hope he can come on the group here. I need to add him here. Just a moment, Nicholas, you'll be in. Okay, I think you're in.
And Nancy said that on the chat that she would be here in a few minutes. So.
Okay. So let's just go around the webinar panelists for the moment and just have some of your experiences now in terms of what you're facing at home and what you've had to do. Tim, you've probably had the easiest time of all in terms of coronavirus. So go ahead, you tell your good story first.
Well, sure. I've been self-sequestered for about 12 years, and so it's no skin off my teeth. The thing I worry about is human contact, because I'm a really touchy-feely person, and I've gotten 2 hugs in the last month, and I'm just thinking, man, can I survive? Can my sanity survive not being able to touch people? Other than that, this is great, having an opportunity to speak with friends from around the world and people I haven't met. I mean, I hardly ever get to do that. So in one way, it's really glorious for me. As long as the internet connection stays good, I'll be okay.
Right.
And I also live in a really clean part of the world, so it's easy for me to go out and walk in the woods. And usually I get up in the morning about 5 o'clock and go walking around town. There's nobody out. It's really great.
So Deborah, you're recovering from surgery. Tell us how you're doing.
Boy, every time you and I talk, Skip, we keep having these parallels. I, like you, I have an autoimmune condition. I have lupus. So I know that I have been isolated since the middle of January when I had total knee replacement. So not walking, isolated because I'm a widow and by myself and had no one to help me. So I've been totally alone for 3 months. I'm a little on the shaky side, but also I know, like Skip, I'm not going to be able to go out or see my granddaughter for a year or more. I'm totally, I shouldn't do this. I'm totally autoimmune compromised right now. Right after surgery, I had a severe lupus attack. Is why you didn't see me for so many weeks. Miles and Jerome, those of you who remember me from a few months ago. I am just captive. I am in a senior community, which is a good thing because we are going into lockdown as of, I'm in Maryland as well. I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is the county that has the most cases. I am in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is right next to Washington, D.C. I am an ex-Army agent. So I could really relate when we were talking about not being able to tell your spouse or other people about things that you did. It's very hard. I also had a mother in World War II, had malaria. My brother's a Vietnam vet. So I've seen a lot of this type of thing through my family. And now here I am. Good thing is I'm a musician and a writer and all these good things. So I'm reading and I'm playing the piano and I'm writing for other people. And I just started this week helping other people here in my seniors community, which is now going into lockdown. We're in Leisure World on Georgia Avenue, Silver Spring, Skip. I am helping people do whole food orders. I'm helping people do Amazon orders. I'm helping people do formatting and publishing and computer things that a lot of the average age here doesn't know. I'm the younger, at 67, I'm the younger scale of people who live in my community. We have people over 100 here. We have had one death here. An author that I finished a book for just a couple of months ago. It was a ghostwriting assignment. His father died in upstate New York last week. An author that I am editing currently right now for her partner, it's a female couple, her partner in a little remote area of Scotland is not doing well.
So you're saying you've had one person in your community already die from coronavirus?
Yes.
Okay.
And we don't know how many cases because our condo association has not divulged that to us. The only thing we're hearing is word of mouth. So me and my neighbor are now putting together a Hollywood Squares type thing. We're going to be doing a video thing on YouTube through Zoom where we have people come in, and like I say, I'm teaching people how to do Amazon and Whole Foods and things like that. I'm an Amazon publisher, so I know their system inside out. A lot of people don't get it in our age category, and of course we're the age category that, I know there's some young people here too, but we're the age category that is most susceptible. And of course, let's say in my case, I have to be totally secluded even from my family.
Yeah, well, me too, for sure.
I know. Well, that's when you said that, I thought, gosh, what more do we have in common, Skip, besides we know what's going to happen before it's going to happen. But I don't think either one of us realized this was coming as hard as it was.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that realized it was coming as hard as it was, obviously. Yeah. And,
Boy, Deborah, that's just hard to hear. I'm really sorry that you're putting up with that, and I'm sure that's going to be really common.
I'm trying to reach out and help others. I'm a hypnotherapist with a PhD in psychology, and so I never worked as I didn't want to be a psychiatrist because I'm like you. I don't like like Jerome said, I don't like the meds that they label everything and everybody gets on a med. I'm very against those medications being used for long periods of time, but I'm a hypnotherapist. And so I'm helping people with meditation and relaxation exercises, but I'm doing it all online on camera, which this is the first time I've let you guys see me in 3 months since I had surgery, because I really look pretty dismal. You think I'm pale now? You had to see me 2 weeks ago. I had some problems too, and still having some problems, but overall it's going to be okay.
Yeah, with the surgery, you were having problems?
Yeah, the knee started buckling behind the knee, and the doctor assured me that the prosthesis was secure. So we weren't sure what was going on here, and it's still happening. And so I would get off the crutches and walk, which is what I want to do so badly. So I haven't walked in 6 months. Whenever last time Skip saw me, but I know it's probably been that long. And then it just started again. So we don't know what's causing it. The leg just collapses. And it's not like this is new for me. This is I know I only have 2 legs, but this is my 3rd knee replacement.
Oh boy.
And this was a redo. And so and I also have low platelets, and you may tell by the complexion, I'm very anemic. So we had bleeding problems. And yeah, so I've been through a lot. But I'm very optimistic, and my way of healing, and I was so glad when you were talking about healing yourself, because I believe in the healer within, and no one can heal without allowing themselves to heal. And so my way of healing me, because I I'm sorry, I'm in a deep depression. I know I am. I can diagnose myself, which is bad, I know. But I can heal myself by helping and healing others because it's what I do. So
Yeah.
and that's why I wanted so much to get back on here. I tried to get on last week and couldn't because you were doing a real poignant part of the book on Young that I was, but this is what's happened in just the past couple days, going from 80,000
Sure.
to 120 to now up to 160. I mean, it's just, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I did hear, I have a friend who works for FEMA. He's a retired firefighter. And he is at the college where they train the first responders and emergency personnel and firefighters and all that. Well, their college is closed, but he is still working online. He said that something that was not in the news was that particularly in Italy, since it was flu season and virus season, as well as the coronavirus, in the air, the virus not being airborne, in the air, the coronavirus can mix with another virus and mutate. And they say that's why it went from just a couple hundred cases in Italy in 4 days' time to 6,300 cases, and hundreds and hundreds of deaths, which happened in just a matter of 4 or 5 days. So there is this, and as I say, I've not heard this on the news. I've only heard it through FEMA because I know someone there, is that it can connect with another airborne virus and then become airborne. So,
well, and I understand that it's already mutated once.
Yes, it definitely did in Italy. That's 100%, and it has here too.
Right.
And Maryland is looking at that, and you and I are in Maryland.
Right.
So anyway, that's my story.
Well, I'd like to thank Deborah for sharing that, and particularly about reminding us about the meditation part. And if you don't have a meditation practice, I would suggest that maybe you can teach us some meditation techniques.
That I can do.
Yeah,
that I can do.
So,
I'm doing that right now in my community.
Yeah, it's very important that we do some things to help relieve that stress and move you into that what I call is the state, which is, I call it the parasympathetic system. It's just my notion of it. So the sympathetic system gets all bothered and you need to move back into the parasympathetic system. So that's the way I used to teach the stress training. So but I think it's important that we need to redo that. And I've been meditating every day, and I usually don't do that every day, but I've had to because it's just, I can feel the stress build up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing at night early on, right after the surgery, when I went for 48 plus hours without sleeping because the pain just wouldn't stop no matter what they gave me. Which again was not like the other two replacements. So this one's right. Because I'm older now. But
we all are.
Yeah.
So Miles, tell us about Calgary.
Yes, hopefully it's better up there.
Hi everybody. Yeah, we're locked down. Well, it's not locked down. Have been for maybe 10 days now, a state of everybody stay home unless you're essential. Now, grocery store people are considered essential, so let's give a kudos to grocery store people. They're turned out to their frontline essential services.
None of them expected they were going to be in the front line of a war, that's for sure.
No. So one of the things I did today was, it worked out well because we were getting a little low. I have a family, myself, my wife, and my 2 children. They're 17 and 18. And they're both the ones in high school, and they're not allowed. They've not been in school now for 10 days, and my daughter goes to a nearby university, and that's also shut down. But they are studying online, so it is. I was just thinking, as everybody's sharing here, how different it would be for us all to be sequestered without the ability to talk face to face, essentially, like face to face on Zoom and other services.
Right.
So if this happened 10 years ago and we're all closed into our homes, boy, that would be really isolating. So there's something wonderful about where we're at. Now, I guess the other thing I would say is that I went and got some groceries, and again, technology allows us to go onto a computer, and the store has all their products, and you just click all that you want and you pay over online.
Mhm.
And they said, well, my wife put in the order perhaps 5 days ago, and she could update it right up until last night, I believe. And they said 5 days ago, your order will be ready today at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And in fact, they did confirm that they were still on schedule. So all it required me to do was drive over there. They have special parking spots. You telephone them from your vehicle, and you don't even go into the store. They come out with a big trolley, and they'll even load it into the back of your vehicle, and away you go. So, tremendous service. Hopefully other people have access to that sort of thing, because it does greatly reduce your needing to encounter people. I'll just wrap up and say, as Jerome mentioned, there are people here too that are not respecting that, how serious it is. And if you do go into a store, it should only be one person from your family. You should not be taking all your kids and everybody in, like it's just a day off school. You need to think of other people. You need to think of the grocery store people, and of course think of the medical staff, because the more people that inundate the hospitals, the more the risk to the medical personnel as well.
Boy,
And
absolutely.
we don't want them throwing in the towel and saying, to heck with you people, if you're not going to work to do the best you can to protect us, they could easily just say, I'm going home. Why should I risk myself? So
Yeah,
I don't know, any questions?
No, I just observed that you're still in Canada under 10,000 cases, and you're lucky, but I'm putting the link to the statistics that I'm looking at every day, which is called worldometers.info. And they say that the US has the distinction of now having twice as many cases as China had, twice as many, 163,000 as of now, and up about 20,000 from yesterday, or 19,000 and change. So it's definitely coming on us. And so anyway, go ahead.
I've got a question for you. Is your is the, I don't know what you call it, the request coming down from the national government, or is it the provincial government that makes that determination?
Oh, for Miles.
Yeah.
Well, it is by province. We have provinces as compared to your states. Our health care is provincially administered. We do have single payer health care So in other words, healthcare actually is supported through taxation, and it's a provincial matter. So there is some variation. However, the federal government has a fair amount of leverage. And so when the prime minister will come out and say, you know, this is what we are calling for, the provinces have to respect and listen, because a certain amount of funding comes for healthcare. A big chunk comes from federal taxes as well, is my understanding. So if they don't want to get
Excuse
into
me.
trouble with the federal government, they have to coordinate. But there is some variation from province to province.
So the instructions that you're following, are they coming from the province?
They're actually coming from 3 levels of government, interestingly. The city has a certain amount of leverage, city of Calgary, because you know, there's a lot of the business licenses are city controlled. So you hear the mayor saying we have to do this or that, and they set certain restrictions. We did have, I think, at a provincial level, they are establishing that, you know, initially it was, for the past 10 days, it was no more gatherings greater than 50 people. And that today, I believe, actually was knocked down to 15 per gathering. And you're still required to stay 2 meters or 6 feet away from each other. So if you were going to get 50 people together, you would have to have a very big hall so everyone could be 2 meters or 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be tough on people. When it starts to hit home, what's happening here, it's going to be very tough. So Marie, how about you? What's your experience right now?
Hello, everyone. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. So I went to the grocery this morning, and they are observing the 6 feet distance, social distancing. So there's like 1 block around, people are standing 1 block around to get into the grocery. And then they only allow 5 people in Gelson's and 10 people in Trader Joe's. And then because Gelson's is have a shorter line, and I need to get something really fast, so I went there. But you know what? You know, Gelson is an upscale, you know, high end, but their shelves are getting empty now. So actually, while I was doing the grocery, I don't know why I get emotional. I almost cried because I said to myself that I have this feeling that the worst is yet to come, because if the people who have the money but they cannot afford, I mean, but there are no goods in the shelves, what will happen? Right? What will happen? Tell me. So hello. I cannot hear you.
Skip was talking, but we couldn't hear you, Skip. Can't hear you, Skip.
Skip, you look muted.
I beg your pardon. I was muted.
I thought.
Yeah, I mean, people are feeling upset now, and we have 2,400 deaths, and you know, the president hopes we're going to keep the number under 100,000 deaths, and you know, Italy's experience is near 10% deaths, so we've already got 160,000, so that means 1,600 deaths, I think, is the way it works out. Is that right? 160,000 cases, so yeah, 16,000 deaths. That's 8 times as many as we have now. You know, all indications are that we're on a rocket to the stars here. So there's no telling where the top is going to be. So there's going to be a lot of psychic pain out there. You know, there's a guy on Facebook that's keeping his balance by making funnies about his situation, and he said the first day he was home, he says, well, there's this woman on my sofa. She seems nice. She says she's my wife. And the next day, he says, well, I've been reduced to watching birds pick up worms on the lawn, and it's Cardinals 3 and Robins 1, or something to that effect. Blue Jays 1. So he's doing it in terms of sports to keep his sense of humor. But Nick, how about you? Where are you, and what is your experience right now?
Sorry.
We have you back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm in Singapore, and we're a small island of about like 6 million, but really small. For those of you who don't know, we are only like 650 square kilometers, not miles, square kilometers. So it's really small for very densely populated. I just checked. We've had 870 something infected, but 200 plus recovered. So the government here is very, very organized and very good. But at the same time, like 800 people is still quite a lot, but I think they've contained it. But life, I don't know, I'm kind of like Tim. He said he's been sequestered for 12 years. So it's something like that, the artist thing. But yeah, life seems to be quite normal. I mean, around the neighborhood, people are still going out, not in an irresponsible way though. And I had to queue up really long to go to the gym, which was very, very odd. And inside the gym, there'll be like treadmill, empty treadmill, empty treadmill, treadmill. You know, people will really be separate.
What's the population of Singapore now?
I think maybe high 5s or low 6 millions, which is a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. So our government must be pretty good for all this, because I think it would be absolutely catastrophic if, you know, something like Italy can happen in Singapore. It's even, I don't know, I think it's even easier. But other than that, I'm actually, I actually do want to go to like the city, which is not that far off, because I think it'll be quite surreal to see how empty it is.
Yeah.
Up close. No, really, like I've been collecting some photos on the news of like I got one of the UK that was really strange. Then another one I saw of Spain. It's like the opening scene of Vanilla Sky. If any of y'all have watched it, when Tom Cruise, he has a dream and he drives to work, he drives to work, and he goes through Times Square and he begins to notice that there's not a soul inside. And yeah, so that was, so it's kind of surreal, because the photos I've been collecting are basically the Vanilla Sky scenario. It's very disorienting actually. But other than that, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Nick, the reason I'm sequestered is because I'm an artist and I work alone and I'm not in business anymore. So I'm just sort of a monk doing art every day. What's your excuse?
Um, that yeah, that exactly that yeah, exactly that minus any art or or constructive work. Yeah, that's my excuse.
So
At
you're a
least,
monk.
at least, no. I mean, Tim says that's his excuse, but he means it as a euphemism because he's actually doing art, and so he's doing it self-effacingly. I'm doing it with my pants down. Yeah, but I don't know. I actually feel quite in good spirits, and I'm kind of ready to start. Like, I'm a musician, so that was my main thing. So I'm ready to start doing that again. And I think like the thing that the wisdom path, the thing that Tim and Skip have started, other than thinking that's really great, especially at a time like this, I feel like really privileged and honored to be able to be a part of it, because I do feel that I have something to I don't know, offer people, just in terms of simple listening or the kind of thing, because it's actually when I was a music producer, it's actually what I do with bands, and you meet all sorts of people when you're recording bands. You're basically kind of a mother when you're producing bands, so it's not professional mental health, but neither is it but maybe that's the good thing. Yeah, because maybe that's the good thing, because at the end of the day, it's definitely it's all about just relating to someone. Yeah. So
Well, at
yeah.
the end of the day, aren't we all providing mental health for one another when we're meeting for over coffee, or meeting in the back room with the band or whatever it is? We're chatting about this or that, and that, for a lot of people, that does fulfill the need. But for people like Tim, people like me, even my wife is sort of a monkette in the sense that she's a Buddhist leader in the Washington area, and she's been through a 3-year retreat, which means she's the equivalent of what an actual monk has done, although she's not ordained, but she does facilitate Buddhist practice in this area. And, so she's very much into that. And so, I'm doing this, and it's what I've been doing to maintain my mental health for a long time, just spontaneously. And in one sense, I want to encourage others who watch the video of this session, and others around the world, to do similar things. I was in a session last Friday with 3 union analysts, and basically what they were promoting is everybody should get a group of 5 people that they're keeping in touch with, to keep keep one another together. And I couldn't hear you, Deborah. Yeah.
One word: keep us sane.
Sane, yes, to keep us sane. We have to balance our mental health, and most of us can't afford to see a psychotherapist every week, so we have to find some way to be balanced, whether it's having tea with your girlfriends, or coffee on the street, as they do in Singapore, men do, or in the Middle East. You see a lot of that, where men are hanging around tea shops all the time, drinking coffee and just chatting or playing backgammon or whatever it is. Those are all methodologies for maintaining mental balance. And so not everything has to go to a psychotherapist. But Joss, are you still listening?
Yes,
If
I am. Can you hear me?
yeah, so what do you think? And tell us about Hawaii.
Um, oh, can you see me now?
No, we can't hear you very well either. Oh, there, I can see you. Wow. Hi, hi, there she is.
All right. I thought I'd put it um, on video so you could see me. Well, here in Hawaii, it's not as bad as some other places. Hawaii has a population of close to 1 million people. And right now, the count of those infected by COVID 19 is about 120 with no reported deaths. So
Wow.
we're very fortunate. However, our Governor Ige, declared a stay at home policy about a week ago. And I've been sequestered for 2 weeks. So I've been in social isolation for 2 weeks, knowing that the danger was going to go statewide. That people are now going to see this as serious. And I also have an allergy too. And of course, I'm over 60. So that means I too am in that category where I'm at high risk. So, like all you folks that I'm seeing on the panel, yeah, stay at home and wash your hands, and we just got to do our part in keeping the curve flat. But
Right.
I just also wanted to chime in because we're talking about not only survival but staying sane, and it's really important that we stay connected. And as you all felt that feeling of numinosity, I support that 100%. I mean, this should be a venue where we can express our spirituality, because I think that grounds us and heals us from within, because all this is a collective manifestation of the internal spiritual disease that's been gripping us. And it's now come to a head, so to speak, with this coronavirus. That it's a major lesson for all of us, a collective experience to undergo. So I'm in alignment with the Jungian philosophy, as since I've also read Joseph Campbell and so forth. I, you know, oh, you also that Joseph Campbell, um, his wife Jean Erdman, is from Hawaii, and he retired here in Hawaii and died in Hawaii. So there's a lot of connection that I have to, and you might say affection that I have for Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
So anyway, the way I'm keeping sane is now here in Hawaii. There is the beaches have been off limits and have been barricaded. However, um, those who are in the community living by the beach have access to the beach, and they are respectful of the 6 feet or 2 meter distancing. So yesterday I went to the beach and walked around, and I prayed, and I meditated. When I go home and I stay in my little studio, um, I dance by myself. I'm a ballroom dancer, so I need to keep in shape. And the only way I can do that is, well, you have to be creative. Take a little space, turn on some music, and dance away like nobody's watching.
Yeah.
But right now, the Palladium, or we have this 12,000 square foot hardwood um, dance floor, ballroom dance floor, that we are just very proud of here in Hawaii. But they've curtailed all social gatherings. So none of that, as well as what all of you are experiencing, no sports, no events, and so forth. So that's basically in a nutshell. But I just wanted to give kudos to you guys that you're all staying connected. And Skip, this is a wonderful forum that you've started. um, just keep it going. You know, we
Yeah.
all have to stay connected. It's all part of staying together as one. That's
Right.
the main.
So for those who missed it earlier, Joss is a psychiatrist, a professional psychiatrist, now retired, I believe. But so she hides her light under a bushel. But
Well, I appreciate Josh, particularly saying to stay grounded, which being a dancer, I'm sure you're aware of the importance of staying on the ground and
right.
not go flying off into the outer space, you know. So
Yeah.
I really love that statement. And also, let's put on some music and dance.
Absolutely. So we haven't heard from Nancy yet.
One more point.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say why it's important to do what makes you happy is because when you are happy, you have created a higher vibrational frequency. And when you create that high vibrational frequency, that's where you're in tune to the higher self.
Mhm.
That's when the unconscious speaks to you the best.
Yeah, and it's also infectious to others. So you transmit that to others. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's all be happy and transmit.
Right. Right. So Nancy, tell us about Reno. Uh-oh. Nancy, we're having the same problem we had before. Nancy, you can only use one mic. Somehow you have to.
Can you hear me yet?
Yes, now we can. Yep.
Okay. Well, I try not to watch the news. I don't have TV, so that helps. And I get one day I get a briefing from my local newspaper and I read the headlines and then I'm done for the day of taking in bad news. So that helps. And one of the things I learned when I was so ill for so long, to make little vacation spots throughout the day, to notice what gives you pleasure and not just pass it by, but stay with it for a while. So I have a lot of songbirds in my backyard right now. And I go out the door and I hear new voices, birds that I haven't heard. They must be passing through.
Mm-hmm.
And to just stop, listen. I ran and grabbed my binoculars and tried to see what this one bird was I didn't recognize, missed them. Walk my labyrinth. I have 4 times of meditation throughout the day, about 20 to 30 minutes each. And I'm very fortunate to have a college student living with me, renting a room. And he can't go to college right now. He has to do everything over the internet. So we have played Monopoly, X-Men, and we have played Trivial Pursuit. And tomorrow I think we're going to just take a drive around town just to get away from the house a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do have days where I'm just really unsettled and seem to want to dissociate. And then I am helped by my yoga breathing, my pranayama breathing, which really stimulates everything, makes everything better. And I have a little saying to myself, I consent to your presence and action within my life, a little prayer to the deep center. And for some reason, that gets me right back in my body, and that helps. The things that have disturbed me most, though, are lack of ability to be with family. My daughter and her father and her husband are just 10 minutes away, but they've made it clear I am not welcome. I mean, they don't mean it in a negative way at all, but they just are wanting to be extremely careful.
Yeah.
And I would never have expected that of close family, but I honor that, understand that. And I do have, the college student does go out grocery shopping. So
I madly get out my Lysol and clean the door handles and everything once he's back in, and ask him to wash his hands real good. And
Yeah.
one of the sadder things was my gardener, who is a homeless man. He lives in well, actually, he has his first apartment, actually. That's good. Although he can't pay his rent, thank goodness we have the things in place. He won't be kicked out right away. But when he came in, I held up my hand and I said 6 feet, and he burst into tears because he felt he was lonely, and we're close, and to be, warded off
Yeah.
hurt
Yeah,
his
that's
feelings so
hard.
much. Yeah, so in Reno, let's see, in Nevada, we had over 400 cases on Sunday, and today over 600 cases. So it is building. It's the worst is in Las Vegas area, which is a big interchange with California, Southern California.
Yeah, I was just looking at the statistics on Worldometers, and it says you have 1,000 cases and 88 new cases today.
So that'll be my update tomorrow morning.
Yeah, probably. So this is moving fast, and but you don't have a stay-at-home order yet from your governor, is that right?
I think it's still the essential businesses. I think restaurants are still open, and that he put in a 30-day social distancing policy maybe a week or two ago.
Righto. So should we talk a little bit about memories, dreams, reflections, as long as we're here, work our way through a little bit more of the book. So last week we were reading along, and we've been trying to do this sentence by sentence almost, because there's so much information layered into this particular chapter 12 of Memories, Dreams, Reflections. And it ended with Dr. Young talking about the criterion. I'll just read the last couple of sentences that we already addressed, but
what page are you on?
We're on page 329, and I'm going to read the last couple of sentences of that first full paragraph there. So Dr. Young says the criterion of ethical action can no longer consist in the simple view that good has the force of a categorical imperative, while so-called evil can resolutely be shunned. Recognition of the reality of evil necessarily relativizes the good and the evil likewise, converting both into halves of a paradoxical whole. In practical terms, now this is the new material. In practical terms, this means that good and evil are no longer so self-evident. We have to realize that each represents a judgment. In view of the fallibility of all human judgment, we cannot believe that we will always judge rightly. So, what does the panel think? Have you always judged rightly?
Not me.
Not me, that's for sure.
Guilty as charged.
Okay, so one of the bigger problems in the 20th century and beyond, since we're 20 years beyond now, is that, the criterion of what's good and evil is not so clear anymore. And
I could share a little bit about this.
okay, go ahead, Miles.
So today I sent an email to a group of, relatively speaking, prominent people who I have by chance emails for. And in this email, and which I would be pleased to send to anybody if anyone's interested, I'm letting them know that there's this organization called Climate Healers, and they're now calling themselves, at least temporarily, Corona Healers. And in fact, in my letter to these scientists to let them know that this other organization, Corona Healers, is hosting these free webinars, or a summit as they call it, for the next 14 days or 16 days. I'm telling them I'm asking them to investigate this themselves. I'm not saying I'm endorsing this. I'm just saying if you're scientifically motivated people, I'm just pointing to this and saying it is urgent for us to attend to coronavirus. Please investigate these and scrutinize these people yourself. And I gave them the founder's email address and his assistant's address, so that if they want to question this person and their concepts, they have these two emails. Now, what is the concept? The concept is that if we want to lick these viruses for the long term, we have to change our diet. Now, to tell people that you've been eating wrong all these years is an affront to the sensibilities. And I have this debate in my own home, because I'm saying, hey, this makes sense to me. So when everyone else is eating bacon, I'm not, So anyway, this is an example I would suggest for us to, could it be? So, because these are zoonotic viruses. Zoonotic means they're being derived from animals.
Mhm.
The common cold is actually from horses, for example. And all of these influenzas of the various kinds come from either pigs, swine, avian, or birds, and cattle and such. So the premise of these scientists, Corona Healers, is that if we change our diet, we'll actually be healthier. We separate ourselves from the animal kingdom. And in fact, all of the deforestation that is required and has been happening for 10,000 years could be restored. So anyway, there's an example. Hope I haven't offended anyone.
Not me, because I didn't get it from the coronavirus, but I got it from the Lone Star tick. No connection with Texas, by the way. But anyway, I got bitten by a Lone Star tick, and it made me allergic to all red meats. So I have not, since 2013, I have not had any beef, no pork, and no lamb, and no venison, and no red meat. The only meats we have at all are chicken and fish, and rarely that these days. So, it already was happening in my life the last 7 years, that I was forced to change my diet because of that. And the amazing thing is I don't miss it at all. The only time I would miss it is if I am at a cookout and I smell somebody cooking a hamburger on a grill, then I do remember what hamburgers taste like. But otherwise, I just don't miss it. And so that's another example of, that Lone Star tick is all over the eastern United States, from all the way from where Jerome lives in western North Carolina, all the way up to Connecticut. And if you get bitten by it, you're done with red meat for life. And
there's one other thing I would like to add while I'm
Yes.
still thinking of it. And to all of these 50 prominent people of various scientific persuasion, it was going to include Noam Chomsky. I had his address, but he's now at the University of Arizona, so I didn't send it to him. But just to let you know, Skip, you're circulating in the email, because in the email, when I told these people, I said, look, I'm not promoting this. I'm just asking you to investigate it. And I said, I believe that our paths have crossed for a reason. And I quoted you, and you're quoting Carl Jung. I have written it down here. Jung's definition of God, and God is the name by which I designate all things which cross my willful path. And I said to these people, I think I have your email for a reason. You crossed my willful path, and this is why I am sending this to you. And I provided them the link to your April 22nd, 2019 presentation that you did called The Self, the Greater Personality, the God Image, the Deepest Archetype in the Unconscious. So just to let you know,
Cool.
You're out there circulating.
Oh, cool. So that's a question that I should ask the panel, which is in conjunction with this now. How do you think the ethics of the country and of the world are going to be changed by what's happening to us right now? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Jerome, you ought to know something good about this, I would think.
What ethics?
You don't think
in the country?
We don't have any ethics anymore?
No, I'm talking about the country. You said the country, didn't you?
Oh, well, no, but okay, not in the country, but in among the population of the country. How are we as a people, as a species, going to be changed by this 2-year spout?
Well, I would say, when I thought about it, it's, in what we were not prepared for this crisis. And there's a lot of ethics charges going on back and forth. And
Sure.
there's a lot of politics going on back and forth. And there's a lot of infighting, backbiting, and just all sorts of stuff that goes on in that arena. But I think I hope the majority of people will come to their senses and vote for somebody that really understands what ethics is and make some changes. If they don't, we'll just go back to the same.
I don't know. My sense is that we're going to be kinder and gentler in the future, because we're sort of being forced to be kinder and gentler by being in close quarters with our families, or many of us are. Obviously, Nancy has a new family, which is a young man who she's going to have the opportunity to influence quite a lot in the next year. And so that should be, that'll make a difference for him. I know that when I came back from Japan to go to college, the pastor of our church in the Philadelphia area, he was a Presbyterian pastor, and he offered to find a place for me to live for the summer before I went to my freshman year of college. And I spent that summer with an older woman who was, obviously probably 60 years my senior at the time. And her husband had just died, and he just wanted somebody with her, spending time with her. And she was quite generous with me, not only with her time, but she also rented a car for me for the whole summer, and a bunch of other things. And I think she gentled me in that summer. That was the summer that we had the Gulf of Tonkin incident. among other things. And so it was quite a unique point in time, but I can really imagine it from the young man's point of view, being with you, Nancy, now, and you know, he's going to have a different perspective on women and the world, thanks to you know, forced incarceration. I don't know what you call it. But
Our new family is here, arrived.
right.
I would just like to say I relate to what Deborah said about being isolated and concerned about mental health, because when I was ill for so many years and alone so much, it was something I was quite concerned with too. There's just something about human contact that keeps us going, keeps us sane.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you know, even though I'm locked in with my wife and her mother, you know, I didn't bargain for being that up close and personal with my mother-in-law, but it turns out that after my mother died, I had a transference to Geneva, and so now she's like my mother. And I sort of recognize her as such, and I treat her as such. And I think that that has gentled me and certainly helped my relationship with Debbie. I mean, we've always had a good relationship, but the fact that she sees me, how I interact with her mother, and it makes a big difference to her that I'm able to do that. Go ahead. Anybody else have any thoughts about what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. This might be a slightly different view, but I think I think the situation, as even though it's very unfortunate, I think it's a very unique opportunity because like people are being forced to yes, isolate, but in that isolation they're also forced to look within. It's like having the rug pulled from under you, but that rug is it has the power of the death instinct. Yet it's not something that we can project onto other human beings and find enemies and get into that kind of mess. You see, in fact, there's a certain kind of solidarity, knowing that people across the world from you or across your neighborhood might be dying from this same thing that is putting you in this position. So I see it in terms of, in the bigger picture, like in terms of just the shift of psychic energy. Because if anything, I think, although Nancy said that people keep you sane, but the world also has gone to a point where people upkeep the insanity. You know, so we just have to look within, and I don't know what better way on a global scale than this actually. So there's a certain elegance within it to me, and it can range from things like you know, you're forced to stay home. At the start it might be really difficult, especially if you're an extrovert that's used to exercising and then stuff like that, because it'll really upset your body in a sense. There'll suddenly be this excess energy that, you know, will be, you know, it might feel like a disarray, but I believe that in time people will be forced to kind of look within, and in that looking within, perhaps hopefully they will get in touch with things like, you know, the things that they've always wanted to do but just put on the wayside. And from that there will be a better flow. And I believe that that better flow, as simple as it might sound, is actually a big component of what it takes to be ethical. Yeah, I'm not saying that ethics just derives simply from within, but at the same time, I don't see how any ethical idea, no matter how grand that is external, can actually hold much water if internally, you know, we're left, right, center. If internally we don't know who we are, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's just few cents were.
Well, one thing I'm very disappointed about this is that Nick and I were going to be in Switzerland together 3 weeks from now for the Aranos conference. and ironically, all through this, I've thought that Nick was in California. I never quite grokked the fact that you're in Singapore, which is very interesting. I love Singapore. I've been there probably 25 times, maybe 30 times in my career.
For real?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's unique.
I've created a business in Singapore, a couple of them actually. And in fact, the son of Edwin Shears was a business colleague of mine at one point. And Edwin Shears, I think it is, was the first president of Singapore, I think, years ago.
Edwin Shears, oh yeah.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. And so I got to, do a lot of interesting things in Singapore, and used to go to dinner at the, the bowling club or something that's downtown next to the Four Chopsticks that has the lawn bowling club.
I think I know what you're talking about. Is it near the City Hall, the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Cricket club.
Cricket club, yeah, okay. Singapore Cricket Club, actually. Yeah, and
very dignified place.
yeah, very stuck up. And geez, I've even stayed at Raffles, among other places in Singapore. It's a fascinating city and a fascinating culture. It's even in many ways it's more diverse than the United States. And there are 4 races in Singapore. There are the Malays, but then there are Chinese like Nick, and there are Indians, and then the Caucasians, the children of the British colonists originally. So it's very interesting potpourri, and I do a lot of things with a business partner in Kuala Lumpur, which is very like Singapore in many ways. So, and I haven't been to Kuala Lumpur as many times as Singapore, but I've been there quite a few times too. So anyway.
Nick, I have a Singapore connection too. My childhood friend, Barry, I don't know if he still has this business, but for many years, for some reason, I don't know how he came to be, but it came to be, but he lives in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, but he had a business of managing and supplying Subway sandwich shops with a partner in Singapore. So that's
that must be good business.
I would think so. I think he's done pretty good there.
Yeah, so because Subway is standard, all the big, all the usual suspects in terms of US brands are all here. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the next sentence in this section is, we might so easily be the victims of misjudgment. So would anybody like to speak about misjudgment?
Sorry, Skip, in what sense misjudgment?
Well, okay, the sentence before was, we have to realize that each represents a judgment. Okay, good and evil is a judgment. And in view of the fallibility of all human judgment, we cannot believe that we will always judge rightly. We might so easily be the victims of misjudgment. The ethical problem is affected by this principle only to the extent that we become somewhat uncertain about moral evaluations. Nevertheless, we have to make ethical decisions. So anyway,
I don't know, but when I hear that, I hope this doesn't sound too extreme, or what I'm bringing up isn't too extreme, but I think of what Heraclitus said, which was something like, he said, all is war. And not that it's about war, but it was, what was behind that was that what he meant was everything occurs only in the face of its opposite. And I feel it's relevant to today's society, especially because everything is so dense, like connection is so dense. The number of slices of reality that is open to people's perception is so dense and diverse that that statement, I feel, is very true. You see, and it can be from as pedantic a level as, you know, if you're into a certain kind of diet, you can go on a website and you can get information to you that says A, and then the next thing you know, your friend is telling you the complete opposite of that. And you know, and proselytizing it, and yeah, people actually quite holy about this diet thing. So, you know, there's that already. Even with whether you want to eat fruits or vegetables, there's this opposing tension that's there. You know, so if you think on, you know, up a few scales, then it'll be workplace, then it'll be political opinions, and so I mean, I don't know if I'm addressing the point, but you see, what comes to mind is what Heraclitus said, that everything occurs only in the face of its opposite. And I think if you get into a time or a situation where that kind of philosophy, which is actually very deep, can apply to something as day-to-day and mundane as eating fruits versus meat, and there can actually be tension and quarrels because of that, then
quarrels within yourself too.
Yeah, exactly, within the self, you see, and then that's
right.
the quarrel that you have outside is actually, I mean, the energy comes from that quarrel within yourself. So, you know, it's also about the interface and the boundaries, and so the answer is harmony, obviously, but I don't know how I'm getting there, but I think you guys get what I mean. Yeah, but I'll leave it on to someone.
I can tell you a sure way to decide those quarrels, though, Nick. You want to hear the sure way?
Yes, yeah.
You flip a coin, okay? Because
I've heard you say
no,
this.
really, because you know, meat or fruit, for example, are two sides of a coin. I mean, they're opposites in a sense, right? And so you flip a coin, and if you're immediately satisfied with the answer that you get from flipping the coin, heads or tails, then you know you have your answer. If you think, oh, I think I'll go for best 2 out of 3, then you wanted the other answer. Then yourself and the composite of your psyche wanted the other answer. So you don't even have to flip again, and you don't have to go best 2 out of 3. You just know what is your instinct in that instant. You know, are you satisfied with the result or not? And
yep, I do that for religion, actually. Which religion I'm gonna be today?
Ah,
yeah, I'm kidding.
Tell us about that, Nick.
I was only half kidding, but I think the point with that was that like there was this practice, but it was really long ago. It's called random belief, where you basically you use dice, but you flip. Yeah, you just throw dice to these, and you know, you decide. It can be daily, or it can be. I mean, daily is a bit much, but like maybe every 3-day block, you're gonna completely take on the belief of a particular something as high level as religion or philosophy or what. And I mean, you know, if you have to take this very seriously, and because otherwise, what's the point, right?
Right.
So when you do that, I think this was pretty long ago, like maybe 20 years ago, but I think what the important thing that it brought me to wasn't so much about like what I actually believed, because I've always had a certain kind of openness and flexibility. So the big lesson that came out of that was actually this. When I started doing that, I thought it was like some kind of it gave me this sense of freedom, like, whoa, random belief, everything's random. I can just be whatever I want. But when I actually did that, I realized that what it taught me, the deeper, proper thing, was what my limitations were, not how free I was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So so it's not so much, I mean, yes, I got to, acquaint myself with other modes of belief and this and that. But I think the young man's mistake, or I wouldn't say mistake, but the young man's mindset was, when I went into it, I had that thrill of like, whoa, I can be anything. But no, so the lesson in random belief was to show you what your limitations are. Mostly when you start to get into stupid things or difficulties because of the belief you chose to adopt, you see, and then you realize, no, this is really not for me.
That's interesting. The one time that I went to a huge American style Christian evangelical event was in Singapore. There were about at least 5,000 people in the room. It was quite an experience.
What was it called? What was it called? I mean, 5,000 is a lot.
Yeah, it was huge. It was in a tent, and it had stadium style seating. I don't remember where it was exactly in Singapore, but anyway, it had American preachers, the whole bit. It even had snakes. They were playing with snakes, and they were definitely speaking in tongues and so on. The whole bit.
Yeah, that's quite a sight. I've seen those before. It's just amazing to watch.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated with that stuff.
Well, there's some amazing, sadly funny things on Twitter right now about evangelicals, because they've had a couple of these evangelicals who swore, they weren't going to stop meeting in their churches and so on, and then a couple of them died from COVID-19. So that'll change people's views.
Yeah, they need to wake up.
Yeah. Okay.
There's one thing else. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say my misjudgment was with car dealers.
Well,
picking the wrong
you fit your trust and you believe what they say, and then you find out later it's not. So I mean, that's just that's just one example.
Well, in a sense, what I'll share is sort of akin to that in a way, misjudgment. So some of us are familiar with Professor John Vervaeke, and this professor of cognitive science, and he's a Buddhist student, and he's also a psychology expert of various degrees. Anyway, you can listen to him, and he cites from Socrates and Plato to Heidegger and Kant and Jung, and he's just a massive encyclopedia of all of the great historical philosophers of the Greco-Western world. But recently I came across a video, very touching video, of a little 10-year-old Australian boy who was scratched by a bat, talking about zoonotic diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And from a 10-year-old, wisdom
You know, it's interesting when we are born, sometimes we have more wisdom than we have when we're in our 20s and 30s. I know my mother always said that I was 40 the day I was born, but I went backward. I went backward until I met myself at age 20, and then I made the mistake of joining the Marines. No, it wasn't a mistake, but it was quite an experience. Anyway, okay, let me press through this chapter, or I don't mean the chapter, I mean this paragraph, so that at least we come to a logical conclusion for the evening for the Jung piece of it. And then we can, I'll just read on through it, and then we can come back and talk about it. So nevertheless, we have to make ethical decisions. The relativity of good and evil by no means signifies that these categories are invalid or do not exist. Moral judgment is always present and carries with it characteristic psychological consequences. I've pointed out many times that as in the past, so in the future, the wrong we have done, thought, or intended will wreak its vengeance on our souls. So sounds like karma to me. Only the contents of judgment are subject to the dithering conditions of time and place, and therefore not correspondingly different forms. For moral evaluation is always founded upon the apparent certitudes of a moral code, which pretends to know precisely what is good and what is evil. But once we know how uncertain the foundation is, ethical decisions become a subjective creative act. We can convince ourselves of its validity only Deo considente, by the grace of God, I think is what that means. That is, there must be a spontaneous and decisive impulse on the part of the unconscious. That's the coin flipping, right? Ethics itself, the decision between good and evil, is not affected by this impulse, only made more difficult for us. Nothing can spare us the torment of ethical decision. Nevertheless, harsh as it may sound, we must have the freedom in some circumstances to avoid the known moral good and do what is considered to be evil, if our ethical decision so requires. In other words, again, we must not succumb to either of the opposites. A useful pattern is provided by the neti neti of Indian philosophy. In given cases, the moral code is undeniably abrogated and ethical choice is left to the individual. In itself, there is nothing new about this idea. In pre-psychology days, such difficult choices were also known and came under the heading of a conflict of duties. Okay. So go ahead.
No, nothing. I just wanted to say that in that whole passage you read, what stood out and I found really interesting was where he said ethics or the ethical thing was a creative act. I found that very interesting. Yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Well, it is, and you know, you get to hard decisions in life, and when you're adult, they don't get any easier. You know, when you're learning the ropes of being a human being, going through the hero's journey, let's say, you're learning the ropes, but once you get to a point where you have to start making decisions for yourself, then it's not easy. And, you know, I was saying the other day that, you know, I had to decide literally when my parents would die. And the point is that, you know, we Americans can't stand the concept of euthanasia, and so we don't legally have it. But as a practical matter, we do, because ultimately the doctor comes to you and says, well, your father is comfortable right now. I can either give him some more morphine, which means that he's going to die probably by tomorrow morning, or I can hold off the morphine and he'll wake up in pain, basically. And he'll be struggling for a few more days, but then he's going to die anyway. And so, but it's your call, you know, do you want your father to have more morphine or not? And, you know, the same question came about my mother. And also I had to make the decision about my 3 dogs as well. So, so those are pretty difficult conflicts of duties. But, you know, on the one hand, with my father, he had made it clear that he didn't want to be there when he got to the end of his life. He wanted to die in his sleep, and he was asleep, so I allowed it to happen. And you know, these are certainly numinous experiences when you end up making a call like that. But you know, in the end, somebody's got to do it. And whether it's you or a physician that does it is sort of an open question, I guess, where more people are not going to be able to have their families around them in the next couple of years. It's probably going to be a physician that makes the decision. So, any comments?
And those are ethical decisions by the phisians that
Surely.
are standards and established. But it sounds to me like, see, I look at what you read about was a moral judgment, which I think is a little different from ethics in terms of, I see myself as always having an internal set of moral values, and you don't ever get down, and I will stop no matter what it is, and I will not violate that boundary. But it was something internal in me, in myself. I didn't develop those, but I somehow knew that was the bottom point. And so part of my judgment is based upon when I feel like that gets down to that level, I'm not going below that. I won't do that. To me, it would be anathema in terms of me to myself. It would be an injury to myself. And so, and I've had several situations where I just would walk away and say, forget it, you know?
So are you saying, Jerome, that if you were presented with this decision about your parents, you would walk away from the decision?
No, I would make a moral decision, which is the same one you made in terms of compassion and empathy and what he wanted.
Yeah.
My father said he did not want to be resuscitated, period.
Mm-hmm.
So I would respect that. And I would have, I mean, I didn't have to make the decision like you did, but, you know, that's where that was the act of compassion to him, because he didn't want to be here.
All of us are in this sort of same dilemma right now, because you know, my household is all about death, by the way, because Buddhism is about preparing for death, and so almost every teaching of Buddhism is somehow preparing you for death. And then my wife works for Hospice of the Chesapeake, so she sits with people who are dying. But normally, I mean, she's not doing it right now because of COVID-19, but you know, she volunteers in addition to her work time to sit with dying people. And it's a special calling, I have to say. But, she's making a very strong point to me right now that, if she doesn't want to be resuscitated, she's 66, 7 years old now, 66 and a half. But, she's probably got another 30 years of her life. And she's absolutely insistent that she doesn't want to take a ventilator from a younger person, and she doesn't want to be resuscitated. And we have do not resuscitate orders that we all have signed, including her mother. But, I'm saying to her now, look, I'm not going to be part of a suicide pact. I have more things that I think I can do in my lifetime. And so if you can resuscitate me without, within the parameters of the triage, then, I don't want to necessarily die from coronavirus. Okay. But that's, another thing. And, if she gets an extremis, sorry, I'm going to resuscitate you, babe. You have more things to do in my lifetime, and with me, I'm not going to just let you go because we have a crazy virus. Tim, you've been awfully quiet.
Can I add to your experience, Skip?
Yeah, sure.
So my grandmother had a heart attack, and then nobody knows if she didn't leave any instruction to if she wants to be resuscitated or not. So she was in the ventilator for 2 months. This was in the Philippines, where I grew up. And then she was in the hospital, and the hospital bill already piled up to 1 million pesos. That's like 20,000 US that time. So now it could be 40. So my grandmother has 5 children, my father and his brothers, and they are all brothers. There's no women, there's no girl. So
present company accepted.
So there's so much male ego going on whether they will just pull the plug or not. But the thing, okay, one of my uncle is a physician. Actually, my father is a doctor too. But my father and my uncle, they both said that our mother is already in the respirator for 2 months. And then the doctor said that she's no longer gonna live. Actually, I'm sorry. This was before she was in the respirator. She was in a coma. Okay, she was in a coma. And then so anyway, in short, to cut the story short, either way, she will die.
Yeah.
Either you pull the plug, she will die sooner. I mean, but if not, she can. Her brain is already dead. It's just she's just breathing through the machine.
Yeah.
So this is a big decision because who's gonna pay for the 1 million pesos?
Yeah, and I can imagine that would be a big problem in the Philippines. They say that if you're on a respirator for over 30 days, you're probably never going to get off of it. And so that's not very attractive.
Yeah, so the problem was we are Catholic country,
Yeah.
So it is in the conscience of the other three who are not in the healthcare, that they think that if they pull the plug, that they will have a sin, that they killed their own mother. That's their thinking. So
Yeah.
there has been a conflict. So that for that time, that was maybe 20 years ago. For that time, my father and his brothers did not speak for so many years because of that. So I think that the thing that I like about here in the West is this is something that you can discuss even you're not sick yet,
Yeah.
or not that you know what, I DNR, DNR me if ever this thing happens. But if you live in a Catholic country that there's like this type of religious ethics going on, that if you pull the plug, it's like a murder, So
Yeah, this is the conflict of duties that Dr. Young was talking about precisely.
yeah, so yeah, that is I just want to share that because this is something that can ruin a family relationship because of the religion, the beliefs, and the ethics.
Right. So, okay, well, I have some work to do because I'm going to put out notices about our conversation tomorrow. Tim, did you want to finish up something here?
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I had to just get off camera because I was making dinner and doing the dishes, but I just wanted to point out that, as a body sculptor, I've always been really tuned into how the culture feels about the body. And I think we are so sick when it comes to dealing with our own flesh. We have 1700 years of kind of Christian vilification of the flesh, which is really unfortunate, and not very many positive influences. But it's interesting to me that if we look at the way we treat our pets, I think that's a pretty good indication of how we should be treating each other.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like euthanasia and even things like, getting body modification. You wouldn't put a tattoo on your dog to make it look better. Sometimes I think we do that kind of thing just because we feel so much anger toward our bodies because our bodies are never what we wish they were. So it's just an interesting sort of thought experiment. When you come to a sticky situation like that, think about the person in terms of your beloved pet, and it might straighten out some thinking.
Just real quick, I really agree with you. And in fact, you probably picked up earlier when Skip was talking about making those decisions he had to make about his parents. He also had to make them about his two dogs.
Three.
Three. Okay, well, just, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ago, you saw me, for a girl that can't walk and has one leg that's, not holding her up, you saw me dash. I have a 20-year-old Turkish Angora, 100% blind cat.
Wow.
And she was crying in the bedroom. And I really need that 20-year-old cat right now. And she's healthy and she's not hurting, but she was crying. And so I went and grabbed her and picked her up and held her for a little bit. And then she was fine. But she had gotten stuck on, but, so some people might say, well, gee, she's 20 years old. She, the vet said she'd be 112 and people, should you have her put down? The blood work is normal. She's healthy. She eats well. Yes, she's totally blind. Sometimes she gets stuck, but you go, you pick her up, you hug her, and she lost her sight within 24 hours. This talks about the psyche of pets now, which is what I wanted to bring in here. Psyche of animals, of pets, and the level we're on. She, it is indicative of her breed as a Turkish Angora that they do lose their sight. Burmese are the same way. They're from that part of the world. And why, we don't really know. But within 24 hours of my husband dropping dead at my feet, thank God I did not have to make the decision about taking him off life support. He was gone within a second. But to someone to say, put that cat down because she can't see and she, you know, but she's happy, she's healthy, she's, you know, as long as she's not suffering, I'm not going to make that decision. So now, coming full circle from Skip to Tim and then back to Jerome, I think what we're talking about here are that morality you were talking about, that internal morality that's in you, that you go to a certain point and stop. And right after you said that, Jerome, then Skip went on to say, there was a place where you would stop. You're not going to be involved in a joint suicide or in a medical suicide. That was where you were hitting your morality the same way Jerome was talking about. Well, we've all been talking about here, including Nick, including your horrible story, Marie, and of course you and I, Nancy, what we both have been through. We have to, these are all polarities, and our limits get stretched and pulled and tugged, but I think that's what Jung is saying. I think what all this is about, and Nick, you really put it really very well about the polarities. If there's going to be one beautiful, loving emotion, you've got to take the polarity of that with it, because they always come that way. Would you agree with that, Nancy, that the polarities are always there together with your background? Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Nancy, if you.
No, that's basically, I just wanted to tie those things together because we're all saying the same things here. And Miles, I know you did not get a chance to tell us what the young boy said, but my heart bleeds for you for what you had.
Yeah, I just, you know, trying to relate that. I guess I've never really processed it like a grief, I suppose. Because as you saw, I just got so choked up, but I posted the link.
Okay.
It's an amazing story. And for anybody listening, if you just on YouTube search 60 Minutes Australia Bat, you'll see the story of this 10-year-old boy. And what he says at the end is he says to his mother, I'm sorry I wasn't a friend, but you have to watch this video to understand through what he battled to express those dying words.
Yeah. Miles, would you put that link on the YouTube chat too, please? Because you put it on the Zoom chat, so the
Sure.
YouTube folks won't see it. I should say that this has to do with personality too, and the argument or the discussion between Debbie and me about whether I would honor her DNR or not is an open discussion. We haven't agreed, but I am a perceiving person. So my way of dealing with such things is like the funds. Hey,
Whatever.
Huh?
Whatever.
Well, it's not whatever, but it's really not whatever, and I don't know what it would be in the moment. Okay, but I can't resolve it now, and I'm not going to resolve it in an argument with my wife. And so, when the moment comes, then I'm going to have to make that decision. If that moment comes, I'll make that decision. But
Well, I don't think you should make the decision until, because
Yeah, I'm not promising
Can
Donna
I-
her DNR.
Can I just add a quick thing?
Yeah,
Oh.
go ahead, Nick.
No, this was just because yeah, we've been talking about this thing, and Miles started with something about John Vervaeke, and I just wanted to add that I'm not really familiar with his work. But I get a sense of it, and I do think it has its place. But I think what I'm saying is that I think people like John Vervaeke, they have their ideas, and they say, and you know, at the end of it, they're saying that this is it. You know, let's just take it. This is it. But for me, and this ties to Jung saying, you know, that ethics is a creative act. For me, where the rubber hits the road is like, it's in that zone of whatever made Miles have to pause in that emotion. It's in the zone of Skip being pulled in the, you know, in multiple directions in dealing with having to you know, this serious life and death stuff. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's the zone of it, you see. So to me, what John Vervaeke is going on about, it has its place, but it occurs downstream, you see. And in the sense that when the rubber hits the road for him, or for any one of us for that matter, that is when whatever we're talking about gets created. You see, that's creation. Yeah, I'm just
what I will say to you and to Miles about John Vervaeke is that you know, he has a job that he has to do. He's a philosophy professor, and so he's lost in this philosophical mumbo jumbo. A couple of times I've sent notes to Paul Vanderklay after listening to one of his Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, and I said, you know, I'm always reminded of Paul Simon's song Kodachrome, and the first sentence in that song, which is, when I think of all the crap I learned in high school, I can't believe it's a wonder I can think at all. And when I think of all the things that I learned in the fine liberal arts college, Little Ivy College, that I attended, I can't think of a damn thing that I learned in the classroom. Not a single thing. I don't remember a single thing that I learned in the classroom. I learned plenty of things by interpersonal activity, but I never learned a damn thing that I have used in my life in the classroom, except I learned how to learn. And that's why I urge people to go to a liberal arts college, because then you learn how to learn, and then you can deal with whatever comes up. And I've literally had to reinvent myself every month for the last 30 years. And so it doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't hold me back nowadays.
So what about John Vervaeke?
Well, so Vervaeke today, he had a conference, or I had it downloaded on my iPhone, so I was listening to it, and he had a conference with this Anderson Todd guy, who's supposedly the Jungian teacher at the University of Toronto. And so Vervaeke's asking Todd what kind of a philosopher was Jung. And it's quite obvious that Todd doesn't have any clue, because he was trying to peg Jung into post-Kantian this and that and the other thing. And the reality is that Carl Jung was not a philosopher at all. Okay, he wasn't any kind of philosopher. He was a empirical psychologist, and empirical psychology is a natural science the way he practiced it. And so he wasn't trying to logically work out how to deal with the universe. He was actually experiencing the universe, and so he was on the entire other side of the spectrum. And said this to at least Paul several times. I'm not sure he's quite crocked it yet, but the point is, he wasn't a philosopher. He wasn't a rationalist. He was an empirical scientist. And so,
So he was on the wrong page from the beginning.
right. And then another interesting thing I was listening to a sermon of Paul's, which I very much appreciated, where he was talking about a Bible verse, and the Bible verses or story was about the blind man that Christ made to see. Okay, and it's quite evident that Paul believes, and I believe, and any sensible person would believe that the term see in that context actually meant understand. Okay, and so he put the mud on the eyes of the man and sent him down to wash it off. And when he came back and he could see, what he was seeing was not what you and I see when we're looking into the camera. What he was seeing was the meaning of his life. Okay, that's what he was seeing. And that's the meaning that John Vervaeke hasn't gotten at all. Okay, he gave 50 lectures, 1 hour lectures, 51 hour lectures on awakening from the meaning crisis. And in every one of them, he was trying to define what meaning is. Okay. And meaning isn't about any of that. Meaning is about what Christ did with that man. The miracle that Christ did with that man was to make him see, to give meaning to his life, which he did. Okay, that's what the story did. But you know, people who look at it too superficially, and this is basically what Paul was saying, although you know, not really explicitly the way I'm saying it, but the point is, he didn't make this person who never could see in his life be able to see visually through his eyes. He made that person understand the meaning of his life and his place in the universe. That's what he made him see. Okay. And that gave meaning to his life. And so when the Pharisees questioned the man, he said, "No, I see." He could see. Okay. But that's how it's written in the Bible, because whatever word they were using in Sumerian or whatever language it was written in originally meant both things, see and understand. At least that's my opinion. So Paul, as a pastor, understands that kind of seeing 100% better than Vervaeke understands it. Vervaeke doesn't get it. Okay. And so anyway.
And yet he has all these followers who.
Sure, he has followers.
Terrifying.
No, what does a young man want? Young men want rules. Give me rules so that I know what I'm supposed to do. Then I'll be okay. And so in the Marine Corps, Marines come to you and say, "Well, I don't want to get involved in the politics. Just tell me what to do, sir. Tell me who to go and kill, and I'll do it. But don't make me be involved in any politics or anything like that." And those are the people that, you know, they never make it past major. Typically in the Marine Corps, they end at that point, because you have to learn how to negotiate the politics. And, you know, you see the kind of, you know, gentlemen, whether you like them or not, if you look at Colin Powell and James Mattis and John Kelly, examples of 4-star generals, that's the kind of people that go to the upper ranks. And I only met one lieutenant colonel that wasn't already at that point. Okay, only one. Okay, there was one that was still, you know, a crazy man, but everybody else, lieutenant colonel and above, I ever met in any armed force, you know, was a gentleman and understood these things and the meaning of life and every other thing. That's my opinion anyway.
One of the things I'll say though, you know, is if you need to have more than what that little boy said, you know, that essentially the message I received from him is that it's just about being a friend to people. You know, if that isn't sufficient, well, then you can listen to Vervaeke for hours, and he'll say things like, you know, Socrates lived in Athens under siege, and we're sort of under siege now. And Socrates said, you know, the unexamined life is a wasted life, so choose a meaningful life, not violate your fundamental principles. The examined life, people will be confronted with the choice to appreciate that you have had a life worth living. So, you know, anyway, what I'm getting at is you can have all these amazing people who have sliced and diced it, as you said, Skip, but, you know, what is it at the end of the day? You know, we should just be friends and love each other, give, and it's not as easy as being a friend all the time. You know, that's easier said than done, but you know, that's really what it is, I think.
Well, there is a problem, Miles, with living your life by platitudes. And as Jung said, by example, because then you're living that person's life. And eventually you get to the point where you've accepted all these platitudes and you think you understand them, and they build up and build up and you build up in your mind, and you've got this superstructure of platitudes that you're living in, and all of a sudden, boom, the bubble bursts, the the balloon breaks, and then you're having a numinous experience and an existential issue, in my opinion. But anyway, or you get yourself believing one thing more than anything else. And my life has been a life where I've been forced to reinvent myself constantly since I was 6 months old, because I was moving ever since then and changing places that I lived. I think I counted up one time I've lived in 35 places in my lifetime. So that means 35 different environments, 35 different sets of friends, etc. And so it didn't get built up for me quite so much as it sometimes does for others. But anyway, Tim, you were talking before and we interrupted you. So did you want to say something here as we wrap up?
No, just thanks for everybody. It's fascinating discussion. This is really important stuff, and I hope you keep doing it.
Yes, me too. And so,
well, I'd like to thank Deborah for weaving this all together and
absolutely
what we talked about, because you're excellent at weaving a tapestry for us. Let us know what we're talking about.
And
thanks.
Yeah, and so I just want to remind everyone, I'm going to put the link again for tomorrow's session. This is not the link for you if you're going to participate, if you're a panelist. And if you haven't gotten a notice to be a panelist, write to me and I'll make you a panelist. But for everyone else, that's the link that you want to share with people so that they register at least for the webinar tomorrow. And the idea is to try to offer something like solace and someone to talk to for people around the world. And so the rest of this evening and early in the morning, I will be promoting it through my social networks, and that's the link that I've just put on both of the chats, both the Zoom chat and the YouTube chat. That's the link for people who want to come in but haven't been brought in by me as a panelist. And so you will be, if you come to the session tomorrow, you will be on the screen like all of us are right now.
Are you saying this is the link for the people who are not the panelists?
Right.
That's not what you wrote in the chat.
Okay. I'm going to try to say it one more time because honestly, I'm not completely clear myself, Tim, and this is going to be experimental on the first one tomorrow. But
Well,
pardon?
Why don't you just send the panelists 2 links, one for the panelists and one for everybody else?
Yeah, that's what I did.
He did that in an email.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Okay.
I got the email.
Okay.
I think what he's saying here is he wants us to promote the link for people that are not panelists.
Yeah,
And advertise
that's the
that,
point.
like
I mean,
sign up and come watch, and maybe you'll want to join us. Is
I mean,
that
the
right?
people that have been part of this group for the last 4 years, including everybody that's here, already knows about us. And I have officially put you as panelists into the YouTube, I'm sorry, into the Zoom system. So you are officially in there. I will say that I tried to save that today when I put everybody's name in, and it did not save for some reason. I do not know why. It may be because I tried to do them all at once. And so I'm going to have to go back and put them in all one at a time. But the point is that if I've already created you as a panelist, then you can just go to that Zoom link and you will be in just like now, just like you came in tonight, except it's a different number, right? But for people who are not in that group, they can also be in the conversation exactly like everybody is too. They are only required to register one time. They can participate as many times as they want after the first time, but the first time they have to register and identify themselves. That's all. That's the point. So the link that I've just put in is the link for the general public. Okay, as we're promoting a place for people to talk. Okay. Any comments on that? I mean, the other alternative is just to do it the way we've been doing this, which means that people around the world have to do everything by the silent chat on YouTube. And I'd rather have people come in and actually face to face with us, talk about their experiences and what they're facing. I mean, it's one thing when we have 2,500 deaths in the United States, but people are going to face a lot of grief in the coming year, a lot of it. And the numbers I've seen are a lot less optimistic than what the president has been pushing on his nightly open mic dealie that he's doing. So so it's going to hit people like a ton of bricks, and it's going to be fairly soon because Italy was going along. I mean, 4 weeks ago, Nick and I thought we were going to meet in Milan and drive up to Ascona and have a great time for a week with all the union analysts. And 2 or 3 days later, the thing is canceled. And at that point, there'd been 1 death in Italy. Now there's been 10,000 deaths in Italy, which is triple the number of deaths they had in China. And now we have twice as many cases as China had. So what I'm seeing, and I haven't seen any sign of respite yet, I'm watching it every day, the statistics. I don't see any sign of respite yet, anything like a top. So I think it's going to get very bad, and that there's going to be a lot of psychic pain in the world.
Skip,
Yes.
there is going to be a big influx with this new test where they get the results immediately. What people don't realize is they hear confirmed cases and they say, well, that's how many cases are in the United States. That number is so off. That number is so skewed.
Agreed.
Yeah, because they don't have enough test kits. So not everybody's being tested. When
Right.
it first started, which was way back in December, we weren't even really aware of it, but there were cases then.
Yeah.
Those deaths got reported as a lot of them were
Flu.
our
Yeah.
age group, flu, virus, underlying conditions. So the numbers, when we start having this test now that is going to be immediate, are going to really have a big burst.
Right.
And we're going to see that in the next 5 days. So
right. And
don't
another thing
don't
that
panic over that. You know.
no, we're not panicked over it. We're trying to provide a service when it happens, because other people are going to panic.
They are.
But,
They are.
yeah. And the other thing is the president has been pushing this anti-malaria thing, which is called chloroquine or something else.
I'm very familiar with that. They give it to lupus patients. In fact, my firefighter friend sent me, as a lupus patient, an article where her insurance took her lupus drug hypochlorite away from her, and now she's going to die so someone else can fight COVID-19.
Right, but the point,
that's wrong.
Yeah, the point I want to make is that this is not a panacea. It may help some people, but I've taken malaria pills a lot. Okay, I've been to India 44 times since 1990.
Right.
And I spent a year in Vietnam. And here's my experience with these anti-malaria pills. The first 7 or 8 weeks that you take them, you take one a week, everything's hunky-dory. But they were intentionally putting them out at our mess hall so that we could take them on Sunday, because when we took it on Sunday, we had to spend the whole day in the rack, because it kills you. Basically, it knocks you flat. And especially after it's built up a certain level of tolerance or whatever it is, or maybe it's an amount of the drug in your system or something, but something after 7 or 8 weeks, man, boom, every time you take it, you're going to be flat on your back for at least a week. And so, yes, it may well save my life. If they make it available to me, I will take it. But let us not assume that this is, all giggles and light and everything's going to be hunky-dory with it. It's not. I mean, that was 20 to 25-year-olds taking it and knocked on their back every Sunday, which was the one day we had off. And I can imagine older people who take it might not find it so copacetic.
Well, my mother is 95 years old. She contacted malaria as a journalist interviewing German prisoners of war as a WAC, the first women's Army Corps in World War II. She is now 95, and I have seen her go through taking this drug, on it, off it, on it, off of it, my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the oldest daughter, but also we're close. And I cared for my mother. I still do at 95 years old. When she has a malaria attack, I go. And when I was talking at the beginning of the the beginning of this tonight when I said I'm not going to be able to see my granddaughter. I'm not going to be able to see my 95-year-old mother because I live out here where there's, you know, and these are all the things that I have done my whole life.
Mhm.
It's, you know,
Righto.
you understand, it's like ripping me in half because I'm supposed to do these things. And that's why what you're doing here, Skip, and what all of us are doing here, Tim, and you helping Skip put this together, you know, all of us have different areas of expertise. This is so needed right now because the me's, the Skips, the Nancys, the Jeromes, whomever who took care of their families, we're stuck. Skip and I were saying, Nancy, I'm sure too, we're stuck at least a year where we can't leave.
Yeah.
It really, really is a game changer. And that's why
a week ago, Tim and I were talking about whether I would fly to Montana or he would fly here. I'm not flying to Montana now. I mean, I'm quarantined.
you can't.
Until there's a vaccine, I can't go anywhere because
You cannot.
anything I bring in also goes to Debbie in Geneva. And so I, you know, regardless of what would happen to me, and I would take the chloroquine if they gave it to me.
You got to try it.
Yeah.
You have a chance to try it. You've got to try it.
Right. But, you know, but I'm not going to risk the people that are in my household who are all in the difficult age group.
Yeah, your mother-in-law is probably very similar in age to my mother.
Yeah, well, she's going to be 90 this year.
Yeah, yeah. And that, you know, it's bad enough for us in our 60s and 70s, but, you know,
Yeah.
we've got another, as I say, where I live here, we have people over 100 years old.
Yeah. Here's a factoid for you. Geneva, my mother-in-law, was born on December 7th. It was her 11th birthday when World War II started. And my wife was born on August the 9th, which was the date of Nagasaki, which was the last thing in the war. So that's a factoid of no value, but interesting.
Well, military families, I mean, we.
Yeah. Well, no, they weren't military families. I mean, Geneva came from potato farmers in upstate Maine. And Debbie too, although Debbie's father was a YMCA director. But so, Tim, I'm sorry, we've cut you off again.
No, I'm being respectfully listening.
I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. Like it was
Yeah.
very
Okay, well, we've been on for 2.5 hours, so I think we should call it quits for tonight because we're going to be at it again in 12 hours. So
Thanks, everybody.
yeah,
Bye, everybody.
for everybody who's prepared
Thanks.
to
Thanks.
work with us, we will have a new audience tomorrow because when I put it on to YouTube, then lots of people will be coming on just randomly who aren't necessarily thinking they're going to be doing it tomorrow, but there will be a lot of people there. So, or I presume anyway. And so, and please do, if you're going to participate in this, please do also try to promote it a little bit in your social networks. I appreciate that. So anyway, peace.
Peace.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks for coming, Joss. Bye-bye.